It's Monday, September 18th, 2023. I'm going to start this video out by saying this. People are no longer laughing about what is happening to the U.S. economy. I remember a year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, people would laugh and joke and say none of this would ever happen, that this is all doom and gloom. It's all negativity. You're exaggerating. It'll never get that bad. And there would be a lot of criticizing, a lot of laughing. It is no longer a joke to the average American at this point. People are no longer laughing. Food prices continue to soar. Gas prices. This is going to be something that I think is going to get much, much worse. And this is something that's going to affect everybody, every business. But gas prices are soaring. Yesterday, I just could not believe the price of gasoline out here, and gas went up another $1.50 today, and it's going to continue to climb. Rent is climbing. We look at home insurance, health insurance, auto insurance, all this climbing. Utility bills. People are getting utility bills that they never even thought humanly possible. And you look at the average household now, the cost of living now is $708 more per month than it was just a couple years ago. How in the world are people going to continue to be able to survive with what is taking place right now with this economy? It's going to get worse, and nobody now is laughing about where we're at. And this is why I've made these videos for years and years and years. Not that I have a crystal ball, not that I can see into the future. I just connected the dots like most of you. We saw what was coming. We knew when you print this kind of money that it's going to cause a massive amount of inflation. We knew that the markets were manipulated and that they can only be manipulated for so long. We know that the housing market was very manipulated. When you have the Fed buying mortgage-backed securities, keeping rates at 2.6% for a 30 years, 2.8%, this caused a major, major bubble, and we know all bubbles pop. And now we have all these bubbles, and the air is beginning to come out of a lot of these bubbles, and they're going to burst at some point, and I think we're going to see multiple bubbles burst at the same time, and this is going to be catastrophic for the U.S. economy. It's going to be catastrophic for millions of people who are completely unprepared for this, millions of people who have way too much debt now, who just are not going to be able to survive this financially. And we can talk for days about what's happening on the streets of America, the societal collapse that's taking place, and how dangerous this is going to be. And this is something you better be worried about, ladies and gentlemen. But let's talk about another record that was broken today. U.S. national debt hits $33 trillion for first time in history. Again, we're breaking records that we should not be proud of. But yet here's another record broken today. $33 trillion of national debt, and it's climbing. This is what we owe our creditors, ladies and gentlemen. 4 decades ago, this number was $907 billion. 4 decades ago. Today, it's over $33 trillion. Remember, this doesn't include unfunded liabilities like Medicare and Medicaid. Interest payments on the debt are expected to be $1.4 trillion in the year 2032. I think you really better get ready for a dollar crisis in this country, because I don't see how the dollar survives all this money printing. I really don't know. I really don't know. And I don't have the answer to everything, ladies and gentlemen, but I certainly would be holding some precious metals at this point. You still have time. You can still get it. It's still available. But when you're looking at $1.4 trillion just in interest alone by the year 2032, we're going to be printing a lot of dollars, and we're going to continue to devalue that dollar immensely. The hedge today, oil surges to $95 as China crude stockpiles hit a record 1.14 billion barrels. The administration right here has drained 270 million barrels from our strategic petroleum reserves. Now, this is oil that was meant to be used for emergency, wartime, not to push the prices at the gas pump down. And that's exactly what they did. They got a temporary fix here and manipulated gas prices by drawing down 270 million barrels of oil from our strategic petroleum reserves. And this did not work very long, did it? And now think about what it's going to cost to replenish those reserves, and think about the risk this nation has now as we've drawn down 50 to 60% of our reserves, maybe more. That oil was meant to be there for an emergency. Again, not to manipulate prices at the gas pump. Oil has surged more than 32% since the low of $71.57 on June 28th. It's the fastest ascent since the start of 2022. So while we deplete our oil reserves, China holds, get this is the scary thing here. And while people go to their basketball games and baseball games and football games and they watch their Netflix, and while they pay no attention to the most serious game of their life, which is what's happening right now to this economy and what's happening globally and geopolitically, China holds 90% of all global copper inventories. So we're depleting everything we hold here, especially oil. We're not putting away. China's putting away, but what are they getting prepared for? Are they getting prepared for a war? They're getting prepared for an economic collapse. What are they getting prepared for? 75% of global aluminum. This is what China is holding right now. 75% of all global aluminum is sitting in China. They're holding 70% of all global corn, 30% of global soybeans, 22% of all global crude oil. This according to JP Morgan. This is not me making this up. This is what JP Morgan says. And I would probably argue that these numbers are wrong. I bet you they're holding more than what we're being told. And I'll tell you another thing that they're holding a lot of: gold. Lots and lots of physical gold. We're hearing estimates from anywhere from 25,000 tons to even 50,000 tons of physical gold. What does China know? What is China preparing for? While most Americans here hold no gold, no silver, they're holding a lot of debt. That's about it. That's what Americans are holding. They're holding debt while the citizens of China are holding gold, and while the government of China is holding aluminum, corn, soybeans, oil, physical gold, you name it. They're prepared, ladies and gentlemen. They're prepared for a downturn. CNBC, Americans plan to keep cutting back on spending through the holidays, new survey says. I think most Americans are going to be forced to cut back. The vast majority of adults, 92% it says, have reduced their spending over the past 6 months. A warning for retailers, 76% of adults plan to cut back on spending for non-essential items. So what do you think this is going to do to the holiday shopping season? And I know a lot of people will say, who cares, not a big deal. But this is a big injection to the economy. People get part-time jobs. This is where a lot of businesses, small, medium, and large, make a vast majority of their money during the holidays. And so this is going to be a huge impact, a negative impact on the U.S. economy. People are going to cut back on spending over the holidays, whether they like it or not, whether they want to or not. They're going to be forced to, because it's now a choice of either we're going to eat or pay the utility bills, or we're going to go, get something from Santa Claus. This is where we're at right now. The most common cuts over the past 6 months, 63% that they cut spending on apparel and clothing. 62% said they cut back on restaurants and bars. 54% said they cut back on groceries. And 53% said they cut back on traveling and vacations. So it is beginning. People are now forced to cut back. And many people are tapping out their credit cards right now. Many people have already tapped out their savings accounts, their retirement accounts. And so we're going to see very, very big trouble. It's already begun. People that are predicting something to happen, it's already begun, ladies and gentlemen. You don't have to predict that something's going to happen at the end of this year or next year. It's already begun. The wheels are in motion. And this is why it's imperative that each and every one of you prepares, get the debt paid off, get a side hustle, build up capital, build up your cash reserve, work on your security, work on food and water, make sure you have some precious metals. Think about everything you would need during a collapse. If the power went out for 2 weeks, 1 week, 4 weeks, are you prepared to deal with this? The hedge. Home builders finally face reality. Confidence plunges in September. It's difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on his not understanding it. And that really applies to a lot of people like home builders, real estate agents, mortgage lenders, car salesmen, etc. You'll never hear a real estate agent tell you this is a bad time to buy a house. You'll never hear a mortgage lender tell you that this is a terrible time to get a loan. You'll never hear a home builder tell you this is a bad time to buy a house. It's always a great time to these people. Go to a car lot today. Is anybody at that car lot going to tell you shouldn't buy a car today? It's a great time. Don't worry about interest rates. It's a great time to buy a car. Don't worry about getting in debt. You should buy. National Association of Home Builders Confidence Index printed at a 5-month low. 7% mortgage rates have eroded buyers' purchasing power. Actually, it's about 7.51% on bankrate.com today. And what's really interesting is we saw last night, I was watching the 10-year bond yield. It was over 4.4% last night. I think it was higher, even higher than that. And then today, it's sitting at about 4.30. So we're just seeing this erratic volatility on the 10-year. Who's buying up the bonds, ladies and gentlemen? Who's buying this? I would think that maybe we have the Fed in here again buying up. And speaking of the Fed, we've got the Fed meeting on Wednesday. The question is, will the Fed raise rates on Wednesday? I think they should, but I don't think that they will. I don't think they have the guts to do it. I think they only want to raise one more time this year, and I believe that will be November. When you see this tight labor market, and you see the CPI at 3.7%, PPI up 0.7%, why wouldn't they raise rates? I don't think they will. I don't think Jerome Powell has the guts to do that, so I don't think that they will, but they should. But at the same token here, you have the government spending so much money. So the Fed raising rates at one end, government spending over here at the other end. And so this to me is just a recipe for disaster. It's just absolutely decimating the middle class and the poor. When does the Fed, or will the Fed ever come out and tell the government to stop spending? That because what they're doing is having no effect right now in inflation if the government continues to spend by the trillions of dollars. So it'll be interesting to see what happens Wednesday. I don't think they want to shock the markets. I think that the markets are anticipating a 25 basis point hike in November, but I don't think we're going to see anything on Wednesday, unfortunately. In September, 32% of builders reported cutting prices. 59% in September provided incentives in order to sell homes. You know, throwing in a swimming pool, the travertine floors, the granite countertops, the custom doors. So again, the builders are getting ahead of this. They're buying down mortgage rates. They're doing whatever they can do, lowering prices of homes. So we don't even really know how, you know, the last number I got was last month they lowered prices 12%, but that didn't include the incentives. That didn't include the buy down. So what's the real number? Are builders reducing at 20%? And when do the retail investors or the resale market, when do they wake up and go, hey, no, we're not selling our homes. What are we going to have to do to sell a home? Well, you're going to have to do what the home builders are doing. They're reducing price. They're buying down. The average seller is not going to be able to buy down a mortgage rate, but they can reduce prices. And unfortunately, by the time they realize this market is going to be spinning so far out of control that you're going to see so many people running to the exits that people are going to have to reduce by large amounts in order to sell properties. And let's not forget all this Airbnb inventory. That to me is going to be the game changer. And we're going to see a lot of this inventory go up for sale as short-term rentals are absolutely getting destroyed now. People don't have the money. They're paying for essentials, not non-essentials like Airbnb rentals. So not to say that every Airbnb rental is going to crash, but we're seeing across the board, across the country, a major reckoning now with Airbnb rentals. And it's only going to get worse as more people lose their jobs as we see more inflation and as people have to make serious choices now, essentials versus non-essentials. And so people are going to pay the utility bills, they're going to eat before they take a 3-day vacation and rent an Airbnb. That's just reality, ladies and gentlemen. Peter Schiff, this story will have a tragic ending. This on The Hedge today. He says it only gets worse as long as we continue to run these massive deficits. The U.S. is currently running budget deficits averaging $2 trillion every year. This is going to lead to much higher inflation in the future than what we experienced in the past, Peter Schiff says. He goes on to say this: I think inflation will be a much bigger problem in 2024 than it was in 2023. We're going to have a dollar crisis and a sovereign debt crisis. The Fed will print, they will continue to print money, and they will collapse the US dollar. Now, Peter says that's not going to happen tomorrow or next week. I agree. But could it happen a year from now? Could it happen 3 years from now? Could it happen 5 years from now? Could it happen 5 months from now? Anything is possible, and you really, really have got to be protecting yourself. And we talk about protecting ourselves. Look at what is happening in Las Vegas. Las Vegas has literally been hijacked with these cyber attacks. Well, here's a story today on Fox Business. Clorox bleach warns of product shortages after cyber attack. They endured a cyber attack last month, causing shortages which will impact its first quarter earnings. They're still trying to determine the full extent of the financial and business impact of the attack. So again, what if our grids got shut down? What if our water facilities in your city got shut down? What would you do? There is now the technology to do this. Now, they say that the attack in Las Vegas came from a group here in the U.S. We know that there are many countries that don't like us, that have incredible technology. We can shut grids down of other countries, and other countries can shut our grids down. But you have to think now the potential and how vulnerable we are as a nation. And this story right here just reiterates and reinforces exactly what I'm saying. We are very vulnerable. We are very weak. It says here on The Hedge, how do you lose an F-35? U.S. military cannot find stealth jet fighter after mishap. This is an $80 million plane. This happened yesterday. They still have not found the plane. Pilot ejected, and the plane kept going, and they have no idea where it is at this point. How in the world do you lose an $80 million plane? Now, you could pick this up. They could find you anywhere just with this. But now, with a fighter jet, we can't find it. Now, what's really interesting is the government puts out this ad, call Base Defense Operations Center, and they give this phone number out if you've seen the plane. I mean, this is almost literally laughable. It's embarrassing. And remember, the rest of the world is watching this. Think about how vulnerable we are. Our military is in shambles. We can't even find an $80 million plane. Half of Las Vegas has been shut down. And you think that your water treatment plant can't be shut down? You think your grid can't be shut down? You are sadly, sadly mistaken. There is so much technology right here in this country, outside of this country. You have people in this country and outside of this country that don't like us, that have extreme technology in order to do things like this. But this is absolutely, literally embarrassing, and it's very, very concerning at the same time. And it just shows you and I how unprepared we are as a nation, that now $80 million planes go missing. This happened yesterday, and maybe while making this video, they have found the plane, but at this point, they have not found this plane. And this is really, really concerning, because this just tells us that if we don't have the technology to even find our own planes, and other groups have the technology to shut down major casinos and water facilities and grids, and it'll be financial institutions and banks and Wall Street. And just imagine the damage they could do, shutting down a company like Clorox. This is very, very concerning, and you really, really have to be preparing for an emergency, ladies and gentlemen. This is, again, I mean, it's laughable, but it is not. It just shows you how fragile all of this is and how vulnerable we are as a nation to all sorts of attacks. And again, this is another clear reminder of why we put food and water away, why we make sure we have security, why we act as our own central bank, have cash put away, and have some gold and silver and barterable items put away, because you do not know what could happen tomorrow. These are just red flags warning you that the system is collapsing. And if you put your faith and trust in the system to protect you, they can't even find their own jets. We've seen time and time again, banks shut down, their apps shut down, people can't access their money, the ATMs are shut down, the doors of the bank are shut down. Take this as a lesson, take this as a warning of how quick things can shut down. I'm going to leave it there today. Please comment down below, share this video. Make sure to like this video, and please make sure to subscribe to this channel. Most of all, please be walking close to God. And as usual, I look forward to speaking to each and every one of you. God bless.